Hello again. So welcome to part 2 of how many bikes have I owned in the last 40 years or so. And just a reminder, this isn't a consecutive list, and also just to say that, you know, on a number of occasions I have had one or more bikes in the garage, so it's not consecutive. And in this one it features 4 BMWs, which I've kind of lumped all together in one big heavy clump of BMWs, because that's mainly because that's how I tend to think of BMWs, and that's how you see them, isn't it? They all sort of congregate together and there's big herds of them on the motorways and stuff. So we've got all the BMWs to come, and at the end I will let you know how many bikes, the grand total, and we'll also go through a few statistics as well, which will be exciting. And just to say that the spreadsheet is now available, so that's in the link in the description, and there's also a template, so if you get really bored you can fill out your own spreadsheet. I mean, how good is that? And also what I'll do right at the end is I'll just run through off the top of my head, if I had my time again, what are the top 5 bikes I would still like to have in my garage. Right, so let's crack on, and let's start with another enduro bike, XR900R. Really good bike, and I suppose in some ways it was more capable than the XR600, but for me it just wasn't as much fun, but still a brilliant bike. Okay, back to road bikes now. So a BMW 1100 GS, so this was red. So this is the red one with the yellow seats. Really nice. I really enjoyed it actually. I used to go do like completely crazy things on it. It wasn't very powerful. Really enjoyed it though. And this was well before Charlie and Ewan. Okay, next up, and there's a bit of a trend here, I got a BMW 1150 GS Adventure. So this was like Charlie and Ewan's, and it was good, really heavy. And I did take it to Jordan, but servicing was really expensive. And to be honest with you, it was only really reliable if you got the servicing done. And this is the one with the dreadful servo brakes. And I have one memory of coming off some little ferry somewhere, you know, like going down the ramp. And I hadn't turned the ignition off, you know, so I was just rolling down the ramp. Got to the, you know, got somewhere near to the bottom of the ramp and obviously had to brake, but of course with the servo brakes, pulled at the lever, nothing really happened, and my God, I nearly went into the Aegean Sea. So yeah, it was a good bike, quite characterful, but yeah, I mean, it was a bit heavy really, to be honest. Okay, what have we got next? 1200 GS Adventure. Okay, to be honest with you, I found it a bit boring and a bit heavy really, to be honest. And yeah, it didn't really do too much for me. You know, I had some good trips on it, but this was the last of the single overhead cam ones before they went double overhead cam, so it didn't really make that much horsepower, and it just felt like big and daft and heavy and stuff. Okay, what have we got next? So we've got a road bike here, another BMW. So there's been a series of BMWs here. K1200RS Sport. So my God, what an engine. It was absolutely phenomenal. Stupid fast. And it did go around corners all right, but it did need a bit of a firm hand. And to be honest with you, I found it a little bit uncomfortable, so that one had to go. So you'll see that there's a trend there of about 4 BMWs on the road, and you know, that's mainly because, you know, there's that kind of generally received comment that BMWs have great resale value. Well, based on my experience, they only have good resale value if you go to another BMW dealer and buy a new BMW. If you try and sell them privately, or you just try and swap them in for another bike at a non-BMW dealer, nobody wants to touch them. I mean, when I sold my 1200 GS, literally, I mean, it was immaculate, had full luggage on, fully spec'd up and all that stuff. Like, literally nobody was interested in it. Nobody was interested in it. And when I eventually traded it in for a Japanese bike, you know, I didn't get a very good price at all. So maybe it's just me, I don't know, but you know, that fallacy of great resale, it's only really, in my experience, when you trade them in for another BMW at a BMW dealership. And, you know, and that's why it keeps people on the treadmill. And that's why I probably, you know, had 3 or 4 of them in a row. Okay, so what next? Oh, Triumph 1200 Trophy. So this was the one with the John Mockett styled fairing, which I quite liked actually, and it had an absolutely incredible 4-cylinder engine. I thought it handled really well as well. I really enjoyed it. You know, big old-fashioned thing with a huge fairing, and when you went at speed, the fairing was so good, it was one of those where you then felt like a negative pressure on the back of your head. Brilliant, and it was British Racing Green, it was lovely. And then, strangely enough, I got another 1200 Trophy, which is exactly the same, but it was grey. Yeah, go figure. Okay, so we're kind of getting into the modernish world now. So what's next? Ducati HyperStrada. Quite possibly the most superlative, brilliant, best handling, most fun bike I have ever owned. So confidence inspiring into corners. I just loved burying the front tyre into corners and then just yanking it around. Brilliant, comfortable bike. And the HyperStrada it's got the 939 engine in it, and it's basically the Hyper Motard with a bit of a higher screen and a more sculpted seat, and obviously a little bit of luggage. Perfect device, just perfect. And we'd moved up to Northumberland by then, and it was brilliant around the Northumberland roads, whether they were gravelly, bumpy, fast or whatever. Great bike. I think the most memorable ride is I took it to the Gorge de Verdon in France, and those of you that know it know that it's really sinuous, narrow roads. My God, I went absolutely ape on it. I went crazy. It was a brilliant bike. Okay, what else have we got? Let's move on. Honda VFR 1200. To be honest with you, it was heavy as a planet. Great engine, but heavy as a planet, and kind of, the handling was okay, but you knew it was a damned heavy thing. So that one didn't last too long. I seem to remember when I was parking it up, I put the side stand onto my foot. Oh my God, it hurt. Yeah, it's just way too heavy. And really small tank as well, but fabulous engine and great finish. And I did like the look of it. Okay, Suzuki B-King. Oh, yes, please. Oh, brilliant, just brilliant. It was like, it was an event every time I rode it. And it was an event just looking at it. Whatever you think about it, it was totally amazing to look at. It was theatre every time I rode it, but my God, it was stupid fast. I mean, I don't think I ever got beyond 8,000 revs in sort of like third gear. And the times when I did really try and open it up, honestly, it was a proper face melter. My God, it was like, oh my God, what a bike. Just brilliant. Took it to Europe once. Somehow managed to get some panniers on the back. My God, it was incredible, just incredible. What a bike. So around the same time, I also got Yamaha MT-01. So this was the original MT. So this is the cruiser engine, the 1800cc V-twin. Oh, what a bike. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, it was like riding a Sopwith Camel. I'm not sure what it was good for particularly. It wasn't a sports bike, it wasn't a cruiser. But oh my God, what an experience. So again, with the B-King, it was like theatre on two wheels. I'm so glad that I own those two bikes, but they weren't that much useful for anything, and I certainly wouldn't be able to ride them now. Okay. What have we got next on the list? A Honda NC750X. So this is the one with the trunk on it. It was good. I mean, I was commuting at this time, so I was commuting about 20,000 miles a year, so I needed a tool that was useful, comfortable and economical to run. So the NC750X, I can't remember much about it. It started to rot quite quickly and it was like riding a spreadsheet. Anyway, so let's move on. 1250 Bandit, another brilliant bike. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and this was another commuting bike. Did about 26,000 miles on it a year, and it was brill. What an engine. And actually I really enjoyed the handling. Okay, what have we got now? Triumph 1200 XE Scrambler. Yeah, I was really keen on this and I wanted it to be like really good, as you can imagine, but to be honest with you, I found it a bit boring. This kind of let's have a load of torque at the bottom end and don't need to rev it kind of thing. I found the engine really boring, really flat power delivery, and it got so hot, and all of the keyless hassle, it just really started to annoy me. Okay, we've got Yamaha XSR900, great engine, looked brilliant, loved it, but it's a bit too excitable for me. Okay, then we've got the Honda Dominator, which, as you'll know, thoroughly love that. Really characterful bike, and it got me back into trail riding, hence Honda CRF 250L, which I got during COVID, which was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and I loved it. Probably would have kept it forever, but the CRF 300 came out, so I got one of those, and that was brilliant as well. Then we come into the Moto Guzzi phase. So first Moto Guzzi, I've always loved Gutsies, sorry. I've always loved Guzzies, and so the first one I got was the Moto Guzzi V7 III in green. Oh, brilliant, so much fun, so characterful. Took it over to Europe. Oh, it was great fun. Anyway, then swapped that in for another Moto Guzzi, which was the V7 III Centenario, which didn't last very long for various reasons, but a really, really great bike. Then my Kawasaki Z900RS. Oh, what did I do with it? It was absolutely brilliant while it lasted. Of course, I binned it and it got swept up off the road and put into a shoebox. So that's now, I am now post-accident, post-breaking my leg. So it's the Honda ADV 350. And yes, it is a little bit sterile, but it's brilliant. It is brilliant. It's so useful, handles really well, it's totally comfortable, and it has totally won me over to the world of scooters. And I still have that now at the moment. Okay, the first bike that I got after breaking my leg was the Honda CL500. Much maligned because of its looks, but I think that's totally unfair, as you know. It's got distinctive looks, which I think is good. Doesn't look like a boring old beaky adventure bike. And really, really nice. Like, so much fun, and it's just great for knobbing around. However, I was knobbing around so much, I started to take it off-road, and I did have some ideas about I might convert it to off-road stuff, but, you know, it didn't really work. So that's why I got my CRF 300 Rally, which I own at the moment, and I'm doing plenty of off-roading on. So really, really, you know, really great bike, the Rally. And of course, my final bike on the list is the Moto Guzzi V7 Stornello. Oh, you know, pure emotional buy. What a bike. I absolutely love it. So that's the end of the list. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. So in total, it was 49 bikes over 40 years. And I'll tell you what, I've enjoyed those 40 years a massive amount. Anyway, so let's just do some quick stats then of those 49 bikes. So 40% of them were Hondas, so that's 20 bikes in total. I don't know what that means from a psychological profiling perspective, apart from, of course, you meet the nicest people on a Honda. Okay, in second place, it's Kawasaki at 14% and 7 bikes. And in third place, it's Suzuki at 12% and 6 bikes. And 35% of them, just as an example, were between 300cc and 600cc. Quite a lot of red bikes as well. And I think in total, from a value perspective, and this is just very, very rough, I think I've probably spent, from a value perspective, £215,000 in total, and that's not adjusted for inflation or anything. It's just, you know, kind of the numbers that I can remember. And if we assume 50% is loss or depreciation, so that's £107,000 over 40 years. I mean, it seems like a lot of money, but you know what? That's 40 years of good fun, great experiences, friendship, conversations, daft things happening, loads of great places. Yes, a little bit of pain every so often, but 107 grand for 40 years of good times, I don't think that's too bad really, is it? You know, it's better than popping pills and getting depressed and fed up and stuff, isn't it? So 107 grand for 40 years of enjoyment, I don't think that's too bad. Okay, so in terms of the 5 bikes that I would like back in the garage, right, let's start from the top. So you can probably guess this one. That's the Honda XR900R. What a bike, absolutely loved it. I mean, I wouldn't be able to start it now, so I'd have to hire a special man, you know, to come in and kickstart it for me, but what a bike, loved it. Next up, the Suzuki B-King. Phenomenal, staggering, distinctive, lovely and wonderful. Love that bike, and I'd love to have it back in the garage really, to be honest. I mean, it was face meltingly fast, but you know, it looked great, and as I mentioned, it was just like theatre every time I rode it. I mean, and what's better than 161 horsepower, no fairing and no electronics? I mean, it's perfect. It sounded great as well, and a really good gearbox. Love the B-King. Okay, next up, Ducati HyperStrada. Best handling, most fun, exuberant motorcycle I have ever owned. I loved it. I felt so confident on it. The front end was absolutely immaculate, and I love the engine. I just wish I'd had more Ducatis, you know, before they started to go a bit V4-ish and a bit complicated. So yeah, Ducati HyperStrada, brilliant bike. Next up, you can probably guess this one as well, my first Moto Guzzi, so that was the V7 Mark III, the green one. Loved it, totally charming, beautiful, waited 30 years to get a Guzzi, and I wasn't disappointed. Sorry, that's a Guzzi. I wasn't disappointed at all, just loved it, and for me it sort of got the balance between weirdness, idiosyncratic behaviour, and also being a good road bike. It got that balance completely right. And then finally, I'd go for a Honda, a bright red Honda, and that would be the Honda Dominator, the 1988 Honda Dominator that I owned a few years back. I loved it, really characterful, sounded great, had a proper smell about it as well, nice and oily. Oh, I loved it, great bike. I'd have one of those around the shop. So yeah, those are the 5 I'd like back in the garage, and of the ones I've got so far, so the Rally, the ADV and the Stornello, obviously I really want to keep the Stornello. So that's 49 bikes. I feel as though I need to round it up, you know, to 50 at least.
You're not having any more.
What do you think? Got to be done, hasn't it? You've got to round these things up. You've got to make things nice and neat and tidy. So yeah, I'm thinking about what the 50th bike will be. Watch this space. So before I go, links to the spreadsheet and the template are in the description. Thanks to everybody that's commented. It's been great reading everybody's comments and stories and stuff. It's been really, really good fun for a very cold winter here in the UK. So please keep sending your stories in, and if you've had any of the bikes, if you've had the same bikes as I have and you either disagree or violently agree, you know, please let me know. It's all a bit of good fun and just a bit tongue-in-cheek. Whatever you do though, never have a nostalgia trip for a CCM 604. Just don't do it. Right, I'm off. I'll see you later.